What's going on, Bourbon family? Hey, happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Gosh, this is time to celebrate with family. And if you're like me and you're dealing with my in-laws who I love, you probably are drinking a lot of bourbon yourself today. So grab a bottle, grab a glass, enjoy yourself, and hopefully you can enjoy Thanksgiving with all of your loved ones. But no, on a serious note, I wanted to start off by saying thank you. If you watched the channel, I recently crossed over the 5,000 subscriber mark, so I appreciate that. I appreciate all the love and support from everyone out there. Really do appreciate it. So thank you again for all the comments, all the support, and thank you again for helping me hit that 5,000 mark. So I do appreciate it again. I do want to say, so when I thought about doing this video, what came to mind was, what better way to celebrate 5,000 subscribers than to bring it back to the company, literally the company that I reviewed first on my channel. So the first ever bourbon or video I ever released, episode numero uno, was Michter Small Batch. This bottle right here. And you guys know me, I've historically been a fan of Michter's, gosh, since the beginning of time. And, I figured this is a great way to kind of bring it back to the first bottle I ever reviewed. But we're going to review a different bottle from their lineup. So let's rock and roll. All right. So when you think about Michter's, what kind of comes to mind? A couple of things. So number one, they are based obviously in Kentucky. They have their downtown Louisville location, which I did have a chance to tour a couple weeks ago. Fantastic. If you ever get a chance to go to Louisville, make sure you tour Michter's. They do a great job in their tours. And then at the end, of course, like everyone else, we love to sample some great whiskey. So you can definitely do that in the tour as well. So the master distiller team, so you have three different people. You have the actual head master distiller, which is Dan, right? Dan McKee. But then you also have Andrea and Matt, who's on his team as well. So Andrea and Matt also very heavily involved in the distillation process. So that full team of Andrea, Dan, and Matt, they're doing a great job as a whole. One thing I will say about Michter's before we dive into this special limited release is when you think about them, one really cool thing about Michter's is that they put their whiskey in general into the barrel at 103 proof. And then from there, obviously, it can go up, it can go down a little bit, but it always enters the barrel at 103 proof. About bourbon and whiskey in general, the actual industry standard is actually 125 proof. So why does that matter? The main reason why that matters is that because when they're taking their bourbon and they're making like a small batch, in case this one here, for example, 91.4 proof, it might go up when it's at 103. It might come down a little bit. But for them to bring it down to 91.4, they're not adding a lot of water. If you really just think about it, they're not adding a lot of water. So they're able to preserve the natural great, the great quality bourbon or rye that typically comes out of the barrel, right? They're able to preserve those great notes out of the barrel. That's a great thing, and I love that by itself. They're not adding a ton of water to the bottle. The industry standard, again, is 125 proof going into the barrel. So it might even, if it's a barrel proof, might even get up to like 130 proof. So they're making a small batch, another company, making a small batch at 130 proof to get it down to like the typical small batch proof point is typically about 90, 95. That means most other distilleries are adding a ton, and I mean a ton of water. So that just kind of puts it in perspective in terms of how they are different, right? And I've always said, across the board, whenever you have a Michter's product, they are experts at toasting their barrels. I don't know exactly what they're doing. It's a nice little secret formula that they won't share with us, but they are definitely the experts. So keep doing what you're doing, Dan and team. All right. So last but not least, before we dive into this specialty release, I want to kind of cover on my right, your left. This is, let's just call it like their standard product line that you will find in like 90% of most liquor stores. So you have here the nice blue label. This is their American whiskey. You have their sour mash. You have their rye, which is always a single barrel, by the way, a single barrel rye. And then last but not least, you have their small batch bourbon. And again, this is the one I reviewed on my episode, my first ever episode. As my man CZR will always say, CZR, I love that, right? That was my vintage episode. But let's go down here on the left side. So every year, Michter's always produces like a limited release. every year, which I love that. I look forward to it, as you can tell, because it takes me a long time to hunt these bad boys down. But they have this one here. The green label is their barrel strength rye. This is their toasted barrel strength rye. This is just ridiculous. They're all ridiculous, but this is amazing. They have the toasted sour mash. This one is actually not barrel proof, but it is a toasted sour mash. And they also have here the this is the barrel strength bourbon, which, by the way, I love this bottle. I just gotta call it out. Probably one of my favorite bottles, hands down, period. And last but not least, you will also know that so they released this product here. So this is their Michter's limited release toasted barrel finished bourbon. First came out in 2014, came out again in 2015, and then it took a couple of years off, then again in 2018, and then finally just a couple months ago, back in September in 2021, they just came out with the limited release toasted barrel finish. Right, so this one's coming in at 91.4 proof. I'm gonna go ahead and pour a little bit. So you guys know me, like every time I get a new bottle, I always take a little bit and pour it into my infinity bottle. An upcoming episode coming about my infinity bottle and the whole process. Be on the lookout for that. Because I love Michter so much, I didn't pour a ton in my infinity bottle. Let's just be clear and honest. I poured just enough to kind of open this bad boy up for a few days. So I did do that. Let me get a little bit here. So when you think about this limited release, what makes it special? What's different about it, Bourbon Judge? So truly, all right, this is essentially the standard small batch. However, it's the toasted finish. So what they're essentially doing is, and that's the reason why the proof point is exactly the same, 91.4, 91.4, right? The exact same proof point. What they're doing is they're taking their standard small batch bourbon, they're then dumping it into a second barrel that has been toasted and toasted at a different let's call it at a different toasting level than what they normally use. And then the bourbon actually ages in that toasted barrel for a separate time frame. Like many Michter's products, we don't have the exact age statement. We don't know how long it's also aged in that secondary barrel, but they are aging it in that secondary barrel, which is toasted. And I love that. I think, Michter's always does a great job of consistency. And again, they are very unique because the majority of their bourbons and ryes are very, very, I always just think of a campfire. Very smoky, reminds me of like marshmallows and chocolate and cinnamon. It's just like, it's like taking me out and just enjoying a beautiful night in the woods while you're camping, sipping some great bourbon. That's what comes to my mind every single time I have Michter's products. But this is a $50, $55 bottle. This is a MSRP. It's a $100 bottle. $100 for MSRP. The secondary is actually up to like $350, I think I saw recently. So it's a lot more in secondary, but if you find it at retail, which you can definitely find it out there, $100. All right, let's get into this bad boy. Woo, man, that nose, oh my. Oh, come on, Michter's, goodness gracious. I can't sing Johnny Gill, my anymore. I just can't. But I'm definitely thinking my. This is like, oh man. So as I always know, every time I smell, I nose Michter's products, a couple of things come to mind. You have cinnamon, oh gosh, like the marshmallows, chocolate, pecans, some caramel. Oh man, this is just so beautiful and elegant at the same time. It's beautiful, it's elegant. It's just such a different nose from typically any other bourbon that's really out there. And I love that. So the question is this truly worth a $100 price point? And I'll even give you a judgment at the end. Is it worth paying more if you find it on secondary or just find it priced a little bit higher than MSRP in the store? Hey, like I say each and every week, peace, cheers, salute. I appreciate each and every one of you out there. 3 quick favors. Hit the like button. Drop me a comment. I love going back and forth. Please make sure you also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for the notification so that you get a quick heads up whenever I put out new content. This one goes to everyone out there. And like me, you're probably suffering with your in-laws. Cheers, everybody. Woo! Oh, my. Hold on. I gotta pour a little bit more. Just a smidge more. Just a smidge. Just to make sure. Oh, man. Ah. Oh, my goodness. Oh. Wow, that is really, really nice on the nose. Mm. Wow. It's so unique. It's truly, really, really unique. I love it. Look at all the fatty acids coming down. Just so nice, right? All those legs. Beautiful legs on that glass. Wow. All right. So, the question, is it a buy? Is it a no buy? Leave it on the shelf. I think I probably already gave it away because, as my man Dave knows, I have zero poker face. That is an absolute buy all day, all night, every day. That is such a, to be a 91.4 proof bourbon, you can tell that there's something about putting their bourbon in at a lower proof, right? Putting in the barrel at 103, and then when they add in water, they're not adding in that much. And I say all that because you can tell, because the quality of this, even though it's 91.4 proof, it still has fantastic quality. The mouth, everything transfers from the nose to the palate across the board. All the caramel, the chocolate, the pecans, the vanilla as well, and the marshmallows, all just twisted in right, just perfect. It's getting me actually hungry for Thanksgiving dessert, which is coming up pretty soon, by the way. I mean, it's like perfect, so well together. And the last thing I love is that, you know, the fact that they put it into that second barrel, which, by the way, they're using wood that has been air dried for 18 months. So they're using top of the line air dried wood to create these toasted barrels. All of that from start to finish comes through. If you can get your hands on this, I highly recommend it. Now, I will say, as I promised in the beginning, Bourbon Judge, how much more above $100 would you pay for this? Me personally, right? Because I'm just talking to you about my actual, let's call it my wallet and my bank account. I would probably pay up to like maybe $175 for this. That's just my price point, even though MSRP is $100. And I actually have had a lot of friends that actually bought this for MSRP, if you can find it. But I would probably pay maybe up to like $175. Again, I've seen it on secondary for $300 or $350. In my opinion, only that's a lot of money. I don't know if I'll pay $350 for any bourbon, not just Michter's, right? But across the board. But again, if you're rich and you are, I don't know, I always joke around, if you're related to Bill Gates, hey, spend $350 on anything. You can actually spend $350 on me as well, but just so you know. Peace, cheers, salute. I appreciate each and every one of you out there. Later.